Hello and welcome to a Spurs Web YouTube video. As you can see, it's just me, Will, by myself, no Schenk, no Mitch. Those two hopped on a stream last night. I wasn't available, unfortunately, but they really discussed the breaking news that is Paulo Fonseca pretty much confirmed as our new manager out of the blue, really, out of absolutely nowhere. All the reliable sources, Damasio, Romano, all of them pretty much saying it's in really advanced talks and it seems pretty dead on. But with Spurs, you never know. Before this, I was doing a video about Antonio Conte's tactics, preparing one of them, and then all of a sudden that broke down. So I scrapped that, obviously. So hopefully this doesn't get scrapped. I mean, I've already made it to the recording, but yeah, so I wasn't available to talk about that last night, and I spent 24 hours studying him, watching Roma games, really getting to grips with who he is, because I knew who he was. I knew him at Shakhtar. I knew some of the things at Roma, but I wasn't 100% sure. I've really studied him and found out his style of play, his philosophies, his principles, especially with this Roma side we've just seen. And yeah, a lot of people are mixed on him, including myself. I do think it is a bit of an underwhelming appointment, but that's not the point of this video. My point is to explain the tactics and his style and things like that in quite a casual tone. It's not going to be a really professional video. I'm just going to try and talk through it to the best of my knowledge. And I'm not here to give my opinion on him as such. I'm just explaining on black and white what his teams do, how he wants his teams to play, and things like that. Because there's a lot of Spurs fans that don't really know much about him, and that's understandable. Not everyone has time to watch the Serie A and watch Roma every game. So I'll do it for you, and I'll sit here on a Tuesday evening and discuss Paulo Fonseca's tactics. And hopefully after this 10-minute, 15-minute video, however long it is, you understand him a bit more, and maybe your opinion on him will change. I'm not here to convince you he's the right man. I'm not here to convince you he's the wrong man. I'm just here to explain exactly, precisely what his Roma team played like. So let me share the screen now. We can start doing that. So I've got a nice little tactics board for you there. I mean, pretty simple. So let's start off with the basic facts before I get into players and moving little circles around the screen. He's 48, which is young for a manager. I know in the modern game we're used to seeing managers below 50. It's becoming quite normal, actually. But I would still consider that young in management, and he still is quite raw in management. He hasn't managed a lot, but he's 48, so he's still learning his trade, and he's Portuguese as well, if that means anything to you. He took over Roma in 2019 after a really successful stint at Shakhtar Donetsk, produced great players like Fred and things like that, won a double in all 3 years, beat Manchester City in the Champions League as well. So he was successful at Donetsk, and then that gave him his move to Roma, and he was there for 2 years, got sacked in the summer. But I think it was quite a harsh sacking, to be honest. I think he developed some really good principles over there. There was a good template for a squad, but I think injuries, especially, had some really bad injuries this year, and things like that affected him. But obviously, there are faults in this game and in this Roma side, which I will touch on. I'm going to be fair on both sides. So that's sort of the basis of his career. He got sacked in the summer from Roma after 2 years. He only got them 7th in the Europa Conference and 5th the year before that. So he didn't break him into the Champions League. But I think most people who watch Roma quite a bit, and from my limited knowledge of Roma, only if you studied them for the last 24 hours, is that there are some good principles of this side that if he was allowed to develop, possibly could have become a really good side. But let's start with the general shape. And this is Roma on the left-hand side. Don't focus on the right. That'll be for the opposition when I analyse them against pressing and things like that. But focus on the left-hand side in this lovely little red Roma kit on the left. So the shape's an interesting one because he doesn't really have a set shape. He started at Roma when he first came in using a 4-2-3-1 mainly, or a 4-3-3, which he used pretty much predominantly at Shakhtar Donetsk, 4-3-3. But he switched in the past year, pretty much all season, to a 3-4-3, which is interesting. And I can tell you the last manager at Tottenham that predominantly used a 3 at the back. I know Pochettino delved in it, Mourinho did, but it seems like Fonseca really honed in a 3-4-3 in this season, and it's pretty much his main tactic now. And let's start with build-up and how they build up from the back. This was a big thing under Mourinho, the lack of it, the constant long balls forward, not in this area of the pitch, not much progression, and it wasn't really Tottenham's aim at all. It was really quick transitions when they lost the ball and then quick balls over the top and things like that. But Fonseca is pretty much the opposite of Mourinho in that sense. He wants to dominate this area here. He wants complete control in the first phase of possession. He wants to control the game doing this way. And I'll go on to it, but if they don't control this area of the pitch, they usually struggle. And that did happen. But he a very possession-based manager who wants to dominate this area of the pitch. Let me just move that quickly. That might get a bit annoying. So he tries to do this by moving the three centre-backs in here. And the keeper, who was Paulo Lopez, who was actually used to play at Spurs, formed pretty much a back four. The keeper is really involved in build-up play and the first phase of possession. He's constantly a source back. Let me just get an arrow quickly. They can constantly pass back into him here if they're in any trouble. That's a really handy option. Would Lloris like this? Would Lloris thrive this? To be honest, I don't think he's the best goalkeeper with the ball at his feet, but trained and done a lot in every game, I don't think it'd be too much of a problem. So yeah, the goalkeeper, first of all, pretty much creates a back four. He's constantly an open source in possession, and they're not afraid to recycle the ball as well. So say if they get to this area of the pitch, say if they get to him, sorry, that's not a square. Say if they get to this, the ball's here. This player will not be afraid to go back to the keeper. They constantly will recycle possession. The shape can be fluid though. So let's just put the goalkeeper back in here to make it more example. The centre midfielder here can drop into this position and create a back four and then help overload this side, for example, or means this centre back will overload that side. Works either way. That could suit Højbjerg. This role could suit Højbjerg, as we've seen him drop into a centre back before, very comfortable in defensive situations and decent with the ball at his feet. So we could see Højbjerg dropping in here, making a back four again, almost a back five actually, with the keeper being open in possession, and then that allows the centre back to help the wing back out here, not get overloaded. So another thing with the other, say if we're calling this midfielder Højbjerg, we'll call this midfielder Ndombele. And this midfielder constantly is open in possession to try and break through a first line of press. So let's say, obviously, let's bring him. The press is, it's not madly intense, but let's say three. The other team are trying to match the three at the back. This midfielder here, which would probably be Ndombele, always is trying to get past that. So he would position himself here, for example, to try and make himself available. He could position himself here to try and make himself available to him. Basically, always trying to make himself available and then always trying to progress the ball. And that would really suit Ndombele. Ndombele is a great player, in my opinion. One that we've underused at Spurs. He's great at finding little pockets in it. He deserves to constantly have the ball on the half turn, constantly be looking for space, constantly have defenders behind him who want to give the ball into him. Because at Spurs, he didn't have that. So this midfielder here will be in charge of collecting the ball past the first line of press and progressing it into these sort of players in here. Let me move them back quickly. So yeah, really possession-orientated manager. Wants to dominate, wants to build up from the back at all times. You really rarely see them go long to this sort of player in here, which was Edin Dzeko, which is, Edin Dzeko is a striker that thrives off them sort of balls, but he never really did it, only if they had to. Always tries to dominate this area of the pitch here. Through possession, really patient possession as well. His aim is to build the ball up as a unit. Not really, obviously, if a pass presented itself, to say he'd quickly want to pass in there. Obviously, any manager would, but genuinely, he likes his players to build up slowly, to move up the lines like this, bang, and then move him up, and then him up, and then him up, and then the wing backs will start going up. If you get what I mean. So he wants to play patient football through the lines in little triangles. Look, he can create little triangles here. They'll create triangles here, and really try and play through the lines as patient as you like. Which is, we haven't seen that at Spurs in a while. We definitely did see that under Mourinho, but this obviously, this was my next point. He needs ball-playing defenders, especially ball-playing centre-backs. And let me shoot that line there. That could get annoying. He requires heavily ball-playing defenders. And Tottenham do not have that in abundance. In fact, I don't think they have that at all. I don't think Tottenham have any centre-backs available that really thrive off progressing the ball quickly and are confident in their ball-playing skills, especially when pressed high. Joe Rodon has potential in doing that, but we haven't seen it enough. But maybe he'll take to Joe Rodon. We'll see. Alderweireld's good at long passes over the top, but this is not really what Francesca wants from his centre backs. He wants quick little passes in here, build it up, triangles, etc. Like I've already explained. So maybe we'll have to go into the market for a centre back, Anderson, Botman, someone like that, who are comfortable with the ball at their feet. But we've seen at Roma, he turned Brian Cristante, who was a midfielder Roma bought from Atlanta. He was a deep-lying creative midfielder, like an Ndombele of sorts, maybe. That sort of player who thrived off getting the ball in, passing it into space, creating chances out of nothing. And he's turned him into this player here. He turned him into the main defender in the middle, and this has given Roma such a good variation of passes from the back because he's so comfortable with the ball at his feet. He can spray balls out here, he can spray balls out here, even go straight into here, and then that leads to their progressive build-up, which can be patient, but because they've got a player like Cristante, who was converted from midfield, all thanks to Fonseca's coaching, by the way. Hard to say Fonseca. It's always a bit tongue twisty when you're trying to record a video, which might be annoying in the future. But anyway, I'm waffling a bit. Brian Cristante, really impressive job of turning him from midfielder to a centre half, and also he can push into midfield as well, and that could create a threat at the back. It's about fluidity. This system, the system he likes, because then that can create a free, and then they've got a packed midfield of like a 4-3-3 almost of sorts, which is what he played at Shakhtar. So it's very fluid, which is good for a modern manager and what we like to see at Spurs. So that's the main shape. Let me get back to the main shape again. You see defenders like Ibanez, Kabula, Mancini, who's a really good defender, by the way, Cristante as well, have all progressed under him, developed good traits in terms of build-up. They all have become quite comfortable with the ball at the feet, always trying to demand the ball. But, no, there is a but. Roma have conceded, I think, 109 or 110 goals in 2 seasons. And this is because of the absolute demand for ball playing. And none of these defenders I mentioned, Kabula, Cristante, Mancini, were natural ball playing centre-backs. And I think they've been caught out with that a few times. We saw against Man United in the 6-1, constantly in trouble because they kept passing it out, making sloppy passes, and then in transition, they'd get absolutely killed. So this is a problem. But with ball playing centre-backs, it's always about time and it's always about a process. So maybe at Spurs, we need a process where we go for a long period. Maybe we're not that good in the first year under him, but then it turns good. We'll see. But I think that is a problem why they have leaked so many goals, because it is such a high demanding system for, keep getting mixed up with these lines in the square. This square here is such a demanding role for these players here. They've got a lot to do, not only in terms of defending, because that's their natural thing to do, by the way, obviously, is defend the ball and be compact when the other team have the ball, but they're more important than these players here in build-up, because the system, as I've said before, really thrives off building up from the back, slow, progressive, but patient, and very, very patient. He wants small passes with players finding space behind the line, not always over the line, which you've seen this season. Tottenham's play was all about getting, say, this is Son in behind there all the time, and then Harry Kane looking for him straight away. So Tottenham's pretty much game plan was Harry Kane, let's put a ball in there. Harry Kane has a ball, and then Son in behind straight away, and then Kane would find him. That does happen on the Francesca sides, but it happens in these sort of areas, which we'll get into. It happens when they've progressed the ball, but what Francesca wants, is to get the ball to this area and then for the in behind actions to be happening. So yeah, discussed a little bit about the possession. As I've said, he wants players always facing the ball. He wants, say, if let's act out another press like this, bang, bang, bang. Let's get the 2 midfielders involved as well. He wants players showing, so he doesn't want players, say, defender's got the ball here. He wants players showing for it here. He doesn't want players going in. Obviously, if the opportunity presents itself, they can, but predominantly he wants players showing themselves to the ball like this. Even as much as this, so they can create little triangles in front of the defenders, and then when the time breaks, go down here and then break, with a wing back or with a technically good player like Mkhitaryan or so on here. So that's what he tries to do in possession. Let me just get the players back here so I can make it less awkward. So yeah, that's sort of what he tries to do in build-up play. And it's interesting and it is quite exciting. It's not, at times it can be a bit patient, a bit, you're waiting for the progressive pass to happen. But genuinely, Spurs have wanted possession football for a while, and Francesca's philosophy is very much possession football, starting from the goalkeeper. As I mentioned, the goalkeeper making the back four, defender dropping into a centre-back to allow centre-back to push up. This midfielder here or this midfielder always showing themselves above the first line of press to then progress the ball, which would suit Ndombele. It's important to mention that again. So yeah, that's sort of their principles from building up. But in terms of actually attacking, let me just give me a second to push these players up here. I'll leave the 3 centre-backs for now because their positions will be pretty obvious. So say they're faced in like a low block like this. So let me just move the set backs up quickly. Yeah, so say they're in this sort of position, I don't know, 4-4-2, push them up in here, like that sort of thing. It doesn't really matter about the opposition. But so this is the most important thing. These three here. So this is the striker. This is the two wide players, but they play very narrow. This would usually be Mkhitaryan and Pellegrini, two really good players that actually put up decent numbers, so it's clearly working. Very narrow. Two wide players, they act very narrow to create a trio, this trio here, and this really dangerous zone, one of the most dangerous zones in the football pitch. And hopefully they want to draw in attention. Maybe the opposition squeeze in like this, but then the aim is also to keep the width with the wing backs, to put the ball out here, and then hopefully they're pinned up one-on-one, which could lead to a really good situation. So yeah, main aim is this three really narrow in here, hoping to draw. Let me just move this box quickly. Sorry about this. Oh, it's been annoying. There you go, remove. So this trio here, really narrow. Would this suit Son? I'm not sure. We saw Pellegrini for Roma make runs, really narrow runs in behind like this. Say they're a bit deep like this. He'd start narrow, and then when Dzeko would get the ball, which in this case would be Kane, hopefully if he stays, Son would make a quick dart in behind. Pellegrini make a quick dart in behind, and then one of them, the other wide player, would act as more of a playmaker, which would suit. I was about to say Eriksen then, which would suit. Actually, I don't know if any players at Spurs would suit this at the moment. I'm thinking Eriksen would be perfect for this role, but one of them would stay in between the lines, trying to get support from here, and one of them would go in behind. Really narrowly though. Son usually gets in behind from these sort of zones, trying to pin himself up against the fullback. But in this system, if Fonseca does play this sort of system, a similar one to Spurs anyway, really narrow runs in behind, which could be really dangerous. So yeah. And the centre midfielders are really important as well. And we've seen this at Roma a lot. Let's talk about Verontal, a really good centre midfielder for Roma. I mentioned about Son running in behind, a really dangerous theme. So say the ball got into Dzeko here, a big target man, holds the ball up really well. The first thing Verontal would do is have a complete license to run in there or run in here. Runners in behind. And I think he scored 10 goals in this area, which is impressive for a midfielder that has a lot of defensive responsibilities as well, especially trying to progress the ball, as we've mentioned, even dropping into centre-half sometimes. So that is really impressive. And it straight away runs in behind. Centre midfielder late runs in behind. Basically, in short, let's get this zone back up. They want to dominate the centre of the park. They want to absolutely dominate it and overload it with players. And hopefully this will end up in teams trying to squash them with numbers like this, maybe even like a man-oriented thing like this. And as I mentioned before, this could actually suit out wide as well, because the wing backs, which could be Reguilon, which Reguilon would really suit out here, wouldn't he? Been pinned up one-on-one against a full-back, a lot of space to kill there. So it gave Roma anyway a lot of options for the centre, but also out wide. Problem, if they struggled against low blocks, Roma, which I did notice in my studying, because when, say, a team really squished in, sometimes and I mentioned, okay, if they squish us in, that's fine, because we can get a ball out here, but sometimes they struggle to do that. They'd shut this passing lane well against them teams, and then Roma would sort of struggle to then get the ball out wide to then create a dangerous situation. So when they're stuck in the middle and the ball can't quite get through, and defenders would keep snapping in and stuff like that, and maybe they're not quite sharp, they would then struggle to get the ball out wide because teams clocked on that was their game, and then they did shuffle across really quickly, and then they get in a pattern of out wide, in the middle, lose the ball, transition, etc. That's what we saw against Man United a lot. Man United really stopped the ball in here, and then Fernandes and Cavani absolutely killed them on the transition. So yeah, attacking wise, they were good. You know, they had players that could score goals. They were fluid. They tried to really pass the ball quick in here. They had a target man like Giroud. And I think that's impressive for a young manager to get a lot out of, you know, an aging Edin Dzeko. Constantly put the ball into him and he'd make it stick. And then a player would immediately in behind, he'd be in behind. And it was hard to stop because when you've got runners and a really good target man and a good striker like Dzeko, it was difficult to stop. It was really difficult to stop. And let's say, for instance, then move on to something else. Let me say, for instance, the ball is in this position and he's being backed up by a wing back. Centre backs follow him right into here. And the left one will do it for the left wing back as well. This obviously leaves gaps, which I'll go into, but they would not be afraid to pass back there. And the centre back would always provide a safe get out passing option to a wing back. And then that would lead them to go back here, and then possibly starting up there, you know, their build up again, which I won't lay out again. And that would be the exact same here. Oh, sorry, I'm putting the key proper. Say if the winger had it out here, or the wing back, had it out here, the other centre back would come in, tuck in around this sort of situation, become an option for him. This does leave gaps, as you can see. So let's say they're in this sort of situation, ball gets lost in transition to this player. You already know what I'm going to highlight. Bang. Problems. He can't come across in time. He comes across. That sort of thing. The domino effect happened quite a bit because it's risky. I mean, there's no doubt in this system's risky going forward, especially when the centre backs are tucking in so much to help the wing back. This leaves big gaps, big gaps in these sort of positions. And it's high line as well, I may point out. It's very high line they keep. This always comes with a risk. Even the best managers like Pep and Klopp have this risk, but obviously he hasn't got the players that they do at Roma, and he doesn't have the players that they do at Spurs either. So yeah, there is issues with this, as you can see, the gaps, but when done right, it is effective. It's very effective. And let me just go over it again. So you have two wide players really tucking it narrow, trying to overload this centre. You've got a safe passing option here. You've got a midfielder that constantly wants to make late runs. I don't know who that would be at Spurs. I'm not too sure. Don't know if it's Lo Celso. Maybe I'd be a sort of player you look to get in. I'm not sure. A midfielder that likes making late runs. Frank Lampard would be ideal. And yeah, centre backs tuck in to create passing options. They can recycle, go back here, go in here, try and. But the main thing is these three, mixed with maybe, you know, one more to really try and bog that up. And it's the most dangerous area. I think it's zone 14, zone 15, most dangerous position on the pitch. And if the link-up play is right, and, you know, Tottenham are gifted with technically gifted players going forward in tight scenarios, that's really dangerous, really narrow. But also they have such width with wing-backs. That's what Roma had. Such width. Could this suit Doherty as well, by the way, being a high wing-back, we'll see. But they really try and keep out wide like this. So often this is what they look like in possession. They've got the passing option here, the centre-back's making the passing option. They've got two midfielders here, one ready to make a run, one being a safe option. Three midfielders in here that, by the way, would be very fluid. I should have pointed that out. So this, he can drift in here maybe. He can drift in here. They can even swap halfway through a game. There's not really a structure in terms of these two out wide players here. He could drift in this pocket, drift in this pocket. It doesn't really matter. There's not many instructions because the players here ideally should be very technically gifted, etc., and good at picking up space. They have to be for the system to work. They've got to say he's been marked here, present himself in here. So then there's a path there, or that sort of thing. Need to be very good at it. Son would be good at this, I think, in terms of the running in behind. I don't think Son's the best passer and mover of a ball. So he might struggle with sense, but if he's in these sort of situations, that could be really dangerous. But yeah, they try and keep very narrow, as explained. Wing backs stay really wide, try and provide the width. Hopefully try and drag the other fullback out. So then that can create really dangerous little half pockets here and here, which could be exploited by then a Son or a Lucas, or I don't know who it'd be. At Roma, it was Mkhitaryan, who had a really good return, or Pellegrini, or someone like that. But yeah, that's their sort of principles in attack. If you know, it's very not much in depth, but that's the sort of rough idea of what he tries to do. I want to point out it is exciting. it is exciting to watch, constantly trying to keep the ball, make it tick. They've got width. They've got players in here that are trying to get in dangerous positions as quick as possible. Even one problem I should talk about is Kane, because Dzeko was used, an Asian Dzeko who's known for target man, hold it up, good in the air, etc. So that ball would always be on, and he's brilliant at holding it up. Sorry, let me just put it back forward into more normal shape. He's brilliant at holding it up. Sorry, let me just remove that. That's going to really annoy me. Actually, no, I'll just leave it. It's fine. So yeah, Dzeko and Kane, obviously we know he likes to drift in these zones, spray balls out here. Let me get the ball to show that. Passes in here, try and find a player in the lines, trying balls out here, just really tick over build-up play. But with the way Francesca wants to play with a target man pinned up against the fullback to help these two players here to give passing options to him, would he instruct Kane? Well, this is provided Kane stays, by the way. Would he instruct Kane to be more of a standard centre forward? I doubt it, because he's too good at this. And I think maybe we'd see the system change, because, by the way, he's changed his system everywhere he's gone. So there's no saying this would be the system he ends up playing at Tottenham, because he's changed it everywhere he's been, to be honest. So we'll see. But this is just what he did at Roma, and his most recent job. So it's the best the example we've got to use. But I've got a cold. If I keep sniffing, I do apologise. I've got a little bit of a cold, so if I keep sniffing in microphone, I do apologise. But yeah, so this is what they tried to do in attack. It was effective at times. Often, as I mentioned, they would have problems trying to build up centrally, even with numbers, because they were so compact in, they couldn't quite get the ball out effectively. So yeah, often teams would actually play a back five against them, which is also a good sign of a manager, that he's doing something that makes the other team change their shape. So let's just put him in a little formation like this. Often teams would go five at the back to try and match the wing backs, to give them space to then match up this narrow three with centre backs as well. As you can see, it's three there, and then they're matching the full backs out here. So that's interesting. Let's move on to pressing and defending. So let's get a team building up from the back. Let's put them in a 4-4-2, because that's the standard. I'll have two in here, and then two centre backs like this. So the big question: does Francesca press high? Everyone wants their teams to press high nowadays. Yes, I would say they. Well, we're going off Roma anyway. Yes, I would say they do, but it's not a press like a Klopp or a Pep or a Bielsa, where it's ruthless, never-ending press no matter what. It's more clever and a bit more situational. That's the word I was trying to find. It relies on certain triggers, and it changes pretty much every match based on the weakness of the other team. Triggers can be passes back to the goalkeeper. So let's say they've decided that's a trigger. So say if they're there, bang, and then he goes in, bang, bang, bang. That's only an example. Maybe it's a pass out to a left centre back or left back who's not very good on the ball. He'd go and press him if that happens. Say if a centre mid's not very good on the ball and he's back to goal, that's a trigger for them to all shift up. So it's a sign of a young coach, because his pressing is very strategical, and it's clear use of opposition analysis, because he triggers his press on what is the other team's weakness. But usually, in general, if we're talking in general, it is a usually high and proactive press for anyone that is wondering. It's usually high. It usually involves the high wide players getting a bit wider, not as narrow as before. Wing backs can be involved 100%. But the problem with this sometimes, and we saw it against Man United, which is the main example where they lost 6-2 in the first leg of the Europa League semi-final. Say that we'll go the trigger of being the left back on the ball. So this then triggers the right wing back to press him, and then him to shut this off or something like that. If that's bypassed, he skips past him. Then what? They struggled. They usually, when the trigger's bypassed, become quite compact. I know people don't want to hear that, but they do. Become quite a compact side, compact in the middle, and then resettle their shape. And that is also the same thing with counter pressing. People don't know what that is. That's when, if you lose the ball, some teams, especially Bielsa, Pep, etc., try and win it back straight away, no matter what. So say he loses the ball, hit to him, bang, bang, no matter what the situation, press straight away, crowd him out. He doesn't do that. Francesca does not do that. Very strategical, very clever with his pressing, in the sense that, say, again, they lose the ball here. They can get back, instead of going to chase him, they get back into a shape. They will shift back into their shape. There'll be no centre backs will come closer, etc. So whether you like this or not is up to you, but they can be compact when they have to be, especially against Inter Milan and big teams in the Serie A. We saw that last season. So yeah, when they do lose the ball, they don't try and counter press. They usually go back into their shape and then wait for the same triggers as before, which could be, pass back to the keeper, passing to this centre back, whoever. It depends. So say, for example, if we're playing Arsenal and they know Granit Xhaka's not very press resistant, every time he gets the ball, the same thing would happen. Bang, he'd be on him, and then he'd have a plan to shut this passing lane off, or he'd have shot. I don't know what the plan would be. Obviously, I'm not him, but he has triggers on certain things. It's not a relentless high press that is the same thing every single game. It would change game on game, 100%. Or it did at Roma anyway. And the press usually is man orientated and not space or ball orientated. So it would usually be, you take this man, I'll take this man, I'll take this man, I'll take this man, and I'll take, that sort of thing. It's usually trying to shut off passing lanes, get ahead of them, instead of all go to the ball in a bit of a frenzy. It's usually press orientated. If that's his man, he'll go. But if it's not his man, he'll back off. If this centre midfielder, say this is his man in the press. Even if it's best two, or it makes more sense, he won't go and shut this down because this is his man. And Roma have to stick to that. Roma stuck to that really thoroughly. Let me just get back into a more normal shape for it to make a bit more sense. There's the 4-3-3, but it's narrow. There you go. So yeah. And this is also why it takes time to adapt, and why he pretty much didn't have a perfect spell at Roma, because it's high intelligence pressing. And I think Spurs could potentially struggle with that, because they haven't had a team that's pressed cohesively for years. Under Poch, they had it really good, but these players haven't been asked to press in this manner in years. So it's a high tactically evolved press, which involves changing it game by game, which takes time to adjust to. It does. I think that's everything covered. Obviously I could go into a lot more detail. It was a bit rough and ready. Let me stop sharing the screen. Let me get back onto it. So we recorded for half an hour. That's gone so quickly. I tried my best to cover the sort of principles of the Fonseca side, especially his Roma side, which is his most recent stint. I have my apprehensions about it. I like the way he tries to play football, if my opinion means anything. I'll go over it a little bit. The shape, the 3-4-3, building up from the back is everything, moving as a team, slowly but surely. Pressing is trigger related on a certain thing, changes game by game. Narrow attacking trio, but width with the fullbacks. So that's sort of everything I've gathered so far from Francesca and the way he wants to play. Let me know in the comments, let me know on the Twitter comments, anything, what you think of this appointment. Obviously, it's not confirmed yet. It's important to say that it's not actually confirmed yet. I could look like a right idiot if this comes out and he's not appointed, and I've just spent a day studying him, and it's not even official. But yeah, that's sort of the principles of his side. Possession orientated, fairly high energy, quite attractive to watch. Really technically gifted players in the lines, quite narrow, and width with the wing backs. That's his game. I know Mitch at the Spurs web is underwhelmed by the appointment. I'm not too sure what Schenk thinks about it. I'm apprehensive, but at the same time, I think it's an interesting appointment. And it's obviously Fabio Patrici, who Mitch is going to make a video on, the new sporting director. It was his first choice. So they might have a good relationship, and then they can build on it, get the players in, like the ball-playing centre-backs and the good pressers and things like that. And we'll see. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for 4,000 subscribers. That means a lot for me, Mitch and Schenk, who are running this channel. We love doing it. Just giving up 34 minutes of my time to study a manager that we didn't really have much of a clue about 48 hours ago. But I hope you got a bit of what he's about in this video. And hopefully, even if you tune in for 5 minutes, hopefully you got a little sense of what it's about. And hopefully we'll come back to this video in a year's time and he's won the league with Spurs and all of what I mentioned happened. That definitely won't happen. But it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed the video. Press like if you enjoyed it. Press subscribe. Tell me how wrong I am or why I'm wrong in the comments. Even the negativity, I appreciate. At least you tuned in. Appreciate it. Subscribe to the Spurs Web. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter if you want. W_Furnace2 or one or two. I can't remember my Twitter name. Search W_Furnace. It should come up. I post lots of tactics things, lots of things about Spurs, my content for the Spurs Web, everything. But yeah, so I'll stop waffling. I'll let you get on with your day. I hope you enjoyed the video. And come on, you Spurs.